The phone began to ring just when Sandra thought she could not cry anymore. She sat on the edge of her thin mattress in her small one-room apartment, shoes still on, eyes swollen, uniform rumpled, sack letter shaking in her hand. The bulb above her flickered like it too had no strength left. She pressed her palm to her mouth so the neighbors would not hear her sob. She had no one to call. She had no plan. She had nothing. The phone kept ringing. She was too tired to move. Then the ringing stopped and started again. Sandra wiped her face with the back of her hand and picked up. "Hello?" A calm male voice answered, smooth and steady. "Is this Sandra, the banker who walks fast?" She sat up straight. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Jonathan," the voice said. "We met yesterday." The phone nearly slipped from her fingers. Her mind flashed to the dusty road, the old man on the ground, the weight on her back, the people staring. The homeless man? The one everyone ignored? "Yes, sir," she whispered. "Good. Come to number 10, Jonathan Street, Victoria Island," the man said. "You will be safe. Ask for me when you arrive." The line went dead. Sandra stared at her phone like it had turned into gold. Jonathan Street, Victoria Island? That was the part of Lagos she only saw on billboards and in bank brochures, the world of tall glass buildings, big gates, and cars that looked like moving mirrors. What was a homeless man doing there? Why did his voice sound so sure, so strong? Her heart pounded, the sack letter crinkled in her fist. Outside her door, a child laughed and ran down the corridor. A pot clanged in a neighbor's room. Life in the compound moved on as if her life had not just been cut open and rearranged with one phone call. She stood. She breathed. She wiped her face again, and she began to walk. To understand why the call felt like thunder, you have to see what happened the day before. It was a hot evening, and the road shimmered like it had swallowed the sun. Sandra walked fast the way she always did, head up, ID card hanging from her neck, black shoes dusted brown by the earth. She worked as a junior banker at a small branch that smelled like printer ink and cold air. She liked the order of numbers. Numbers did not scream. Numbers did not lie. If you added them well, they obeyed you. But numbers did not pay for everything. Her salary was small. Her rent was due. She had taken a taxi part of the way and then trekked the rest to save money because she had spent extra on transport in the morning when rain flooded the road. Her stomach ached, the way it did when she skipped dinner. She pushed past a group of boys arguing about football. That was when she saw him. He lay close to the gutter, on the dusty ground, with an old white kaftan stained with dirt and tired years. His hair was overgrown, grey and wild. His face was lined and heavy. One sandal had cracked, and the other had no buckle. He looked like the wind could blow him away. His voice was soft, like it had been used for begging too long. "Please," he said to a passing driver who did not slow down. "Just a lift, just to get close to home." People looked at him and looked away. A woman hissed and pulled her child closer. A man laughed and said, "Baba, stand up. Nobody is carrying you." A keke sped by, throwing dust into his face. He did not shout. He did not curse. He just tried to sit up and failed. Sandra stopped walking. Her chest became tight. She saw not a stranger, but her late father, his last day in the hospital. The quiet way he asked for water. The weak smile he gave when she said she would be fine. She had not been fine. But she had learned to keep moving. "Sir," she said, kneeling beside the man. "Where do you stay?" He told her the area in a voice so low she had to lean in to hear. He tried to stand. He could not. Without thinking, Sandra bent forward and pulled his arm over her shoulder. "You cannot carry me," he said, almost amused. "My father would not forgive me if I leave you here," she said, almost crying. "Please, try." She pushed up with her legs, and he rose with her. He was heavy, but not as heavy as fear. She bent lower, turned around, and told him to climb onto her back. He did. Her bag swung forward, hitting her ribs. She stood, legs shaking, and took the first step. People stared. Some shouted, "Ah, sister, drop him down." Others laughed. A boy clapped like it was a show. A woman whispered, "This one must be mad." Sandra said nothing. She was too busy breathing. She walked, one step and then another. Sweat rolled down her spine. The man's rough beard brushed her shoulder. He said, very softly, "I am sorry." No, she said, teeth tight. You are someone's father. They moved like that one body, carrying another past a kiosk selling sachet water, past a painted wall that read, Jesus is Lord, past a mechanic's yard where a radio sang an old highlife song. Her mind made a quiet promise. If she got him home, she would find a way to pay her rent, to get food, to wake up tomorrow and try again. After what felt like a full day, trapped inside 10 minutes, the man pointed ahead. Set me down. From here I can find my way, he said. Sandra knelt and let him slide off. Her back burned, her arms shook. The man leaned on a broken fence and took a breath. Thank you, he said, eyes wet. It is fine, she said. Please, take care. She turned to go, but he stopped her. Your name? He asked. Sandra. He looked at her like he was learning the letters of the word. Please, can I have your phone number? Your address? Normally, she would say no. The city was not kind to girls who trusted too quickly. But something in his eyes looked honest. Not soft honest. She took a torn receipt from her bag and wrote her name, her number, and the address of her small compound. He folded the paper carefully, as if it was a passport. God bless you, he said. Amen, she answered. She smiled once and walked away, not knowing that the world had moved a piece on a board she could not see. The next morning, the world took from her before it gave. Sandra reached her desk before the branch opened. She straightened the stapler. She lined up pens. She breathed in the cold air to settle the nerves in her belly. She had stayed late last week to balance a messy file so the team lead would not shout at the new girl. She thought that would count for something. It did not. A brown envelope sat on her table like a quiet snake. She opened it with slow fingers. Dear Miss Sandra, the letter began. We regret to inform you. The rest hit her like glass. They said she had made an error she did not make. They said she had been rude to a customer she had greeted with a smile. They said they wished her well. Her ears rang. Her hand shook. She looked for her team lead, but he avoided her eyes. She went to HR, but the woman there had the hard face of someone who had already decided. Her access card stopped working at the door by noon. She carried her small bag of things and walked out into the sun that did not care who was hurting. She cried the entire walk home, quiet tears that felt hot and unending. She cried for rent. She cried for food. She cried because she had no mother to call, no father to advise, no auntie to run to. Her phone was silent. Her future was a blank page that scared her. She reached her door, went inside, sat down, and let her body go soft. Then the phone rang. By the time Sandra reached Victoria Island, the sun had begun to drop, painting the glass of tall buildings in warm gold. The air smelled different, lighter, cleaner, like money had its own wind. She took a bus, then a kiki, then walked the last part, because she did not want to waste one extra naira. Her heart beat fast with fear, and a strange kind of hope she did not trust. Number 10, Jonathan Street had a black gate so high it could hide a small church. Guards in crisp uniforms stood near the entrance. A row of shiny cars rested inside like sleeping animals. She swallowed and stepped forward. One guard looked at her from her dusty shoes up to her tired face. Yes? I am here to see Jonathan, she said, holding her phone like it was a pass. He called me. The guard asked her name, spoke into a small radio, and listened. The radio crackled. He nodded. The gate slid open with a soft sound, like a secret being kept. Sandra walked through. The compound was quiet in the expensive way. Rich places are quiet. She felt the ground under her feet change from broken concrete to smooth stone. A woman in a neat dress opened the big front door and smiled like it was her job to make people feel safe. Right this way, please, the woman said. Sandra followed her into a living room that looked like a hotel in a movie, white couches, tall flowers in a glass bowl, a rug that felt like clouds when she stepped on it. For a second, she forgot herself. Then she remembered everything at once. At the far end of the room, a man sat on a couch, back straight, hands relaxed on his knees. Two guards stood at a distance, still as trees. The man's hair was trimmed, his kaftan was spotless. His face was the same as yesterday, but not the same at all. He looked up when she entered, and smiled. "Welcome, Sandra," he said, voice calm and rich, with something she could not name. Her breath caught in her throat. Her fingers tightened around her phone. The room seemed to lean in. The man stood slowly, the way important people stand when they want you to know they are important. He took one step toward her. "I have been waiting for you," he said. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. Sandra's heart raced as the man, once a dirty, weak stranger on the dusty road, walked toward her in spotless white kaftan and leather slippers that gleamed like mirrors. The guards by the door stood still, their eyes straight ahead. "Please sit," he said, pointing to the soft couch across from him. Sandra sat carefully, afraid she might dirty it. Her bag hung from her shoulder, the same bag she carried yesterday when she was just another tired worker walking home. You said your name is Jonathan?" she asked, her voice trembling. He smiled. "Yes, Jonathan Andrew. And before you ask, yes, I'm the same man you helped yesterday." Sandra blinked. "But how?" He laughed softly. "I wasn't homeless, Sandra. I was disguised." The room went silent. The air conditioner hummed quietly, spreading cold air through the space. Jonathan leaned forward. "Yesterday was a test." "A test?" "Yes," he said. "Every month, I go out in disguise, sometimes as a poor beggar, sometimes as a sick old man. I do it to remind myself of life's other side. You see, I was once poor, very poor. I lost everything before I became who I am today. But I also do it for another reason." Sandra's eyes widened. "Why?" He looked directly at her. "To find kind people, real people, not the ones who pretend to care because of my name." Her throat tightened. "So you—" "Yes," he said, finishing her sentence. "I wanted to see if there are still people who can help someone without expecting anything. Yesterday, everyone ignored me. Except you." Sandra's eyes filled with tears again. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "But sir, I didn't do it for anything. You reminded me of my late father. I just couldn't leave you there." Jonathan smiled softly. "And that's exactly why I called you." He paused, studying her face. Then he continued, "After you left yesterday, I had my driver pick me up. I kept that paper you gave me, and I told my assistant to find out who you are. When he told me your story, that you're a banker, an orphan, hard-working but struggling, I was deeply moved. And then I learned, you lost your job this morning." Sandra gasped. "You know?" He nodded. "Yes, I made some calls. Don't worry about that company. They didn't deserve you." Her tears began to fall freely now. She covered her face with both hands. "Sir, I don't even know what to say. I don't understand why life keeps doing this to me." Jonathan's voice softened. "Because sometimes life breaks us only to rebuild us stronger." He stood and walked toward a large glass table. From a folder, he pulled out a single sheet of paper and held it toward her. "This is your offer letter," he said. "Starting tomorrow, you'll begin work at my company, Jonathan Group of Companies, as an accountant. I want you close. Your salary will be far better than what you earned before, and there's something else." Sandra froze, still trying to process his words. "One of the houses in this estate will be yours, fully furnished, no rent, and a car will be delivered to you tomorrow morning." Sandra's eyes widened in shock. "Sir, no, please, this is too much. He raised his hand gently. "Sandra, kindness has no price, but it deserves reward." The tears came again, harder this time. She dropped to her knees on the soft rug. "Thank you, sir. Thank you. I don't deserve this." Jonathan stepped closer and lifted her gently to her feet. "You do. Now, go home. Rest. Tomorrow begins a new chapter for you." That night, Sandra couldn't sleep. The streets outside her compound were noisy as always, children shouting, a generator humming somewhere, music playing from a neighbor's small speaker, but her world had changed completely. She looked at her phone every few minutes, thinking it might ring again, and someone would say it was all a mistake. But it didn't. She stared at the old photograph of her father she kept by her bed. "Daddy," she whispered, "I hope you're seeing this. I helped someone, and God sent help back to me." Her small room felt different, warmer somehow. She smiled through her tears. The next morning came like a dream. A black SUV pulled up in front of her compound. Her neighbors came out, whispering in surprise. A man in a suit stepped out. "Good morning, ma'am. Mr. Jonathan sent me. Please, come with me." Sandra followed him to the car, still wearing her old office shoes and holding a small bag. The driver opened the door. When she sat inside, she nearly gasped the smell of new leather. The cold air, the smooth sound of the engine. They drove for nearly 30 minutes before turning into the same estate from the night before. The security men at the gate saluted the driver. When they stopped, a woman with a neat bun and tablet in hand greeted her. "Welcome, Miss Sandra. This will be your new home." Sandra looked up at the house. It was painted cream and gold, with wide windows and a small garden of roses in front. She felt dizzy. This is mine." "Yes, ma'am," the woman said with a smile. "Fully furnished. Mr. Jonathan said you should move in immediately." Sandra walked in slowly, afraid to touch anything. The living room smelled like vanilla and wood polish. There were soft couches, a big TV, a kitchen with shining pots. In her bedroom, the bed was bigger than her entire old apartment. She sat on the edge of it and began to cry again. "God, thank you," she whispered. The following week, she resumed work at Jonathan Group. The company was massive glass walls, well-dressed employees, and a fountain at the entrance that looked like it belonged in a movie. She wore her best black skirt and white blouse on her first day. When she walked through the main hallway, she felt hundreds of eyes on her. She wondered how she looked to them, just another new worker, but inside, she was shaking with gratitude. Her direct supervisor, Mrs. Oke, welcomed her warmly. "Mr. Jonathan told me about you," she said with a smile. "He said you're special. Don't disappoint him." Sandra nodded firmly. "I won't, Ma." And she didn't. Days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months. She worked late, double-checked every report, and slowly earned the respect of her team. She was promoted to account officer after 1 year, a position that others had waited years to reach. But life was not done surprising her. Because one morning, while she was reviewing the quarterly reports, a tall young man walked into the office. He was dressed in a navy blue suit, his hair neatly trimmed, his watch shining slightly as he adjusted his tie. The whispers started immediately. "That's Simon," someone said behind her. "Mr. Jonathan's only son. Just came back from Europe." Sandra looked up, and their eyes met. For a moment, everything stopped. He smiled politely. "You must be Sandra, right? I've heard a lot about you." She stood, nervous. "Yes, sir. Welcome back." "Don't call me sir," he said with a grin. "Just Simon." He extended his hand. She took it. His grip was warm, confident. And that was the beginning of something Sandra never saw coming. That evening, as she returned home to her new house, Sandra's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared on her screen. "Don't trust him." Her smile faded. She stopped walking. The street was quiet, except for the soft sound of her footsteps on the pavement. She looked around, but saw no one. A chill ran down her spine. Who sent that message? And why, on the very day she met Simon? Sandra's eyes stayed on the message for a long time. "Don't trust him." The words blinked on her phone screen like a whisper from the dark. She checked the number again. No name, no photo, just strange digits. She read it 3 more times before locking her phone, trying to calm her heartbeat. Probably a mistake, she told herself. Maybe someone sent it to the wrong number. But deep inside, a small voice whispered back, "What if it wasn't a mistake?" She entered her house and tried to shake it off. The cool scent of lavender from her air freshener filled the air. She dropped her handbag on the couch and removed her shoes, but her mind kept returning to that message. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay on her soft bed, staring at the ceiling. Simon's face appeared in her thoughts, the way he smiled, the quiet confidence in his voice. He didn't seem like someone who could hurt anyone. Still, that text sat in her chest like a stone. The next morning at work, she saw Simon again. He stood in the hallway near the glass elevator, speaking with his father's assistant. When he noticed her, he smiled warmly. "Good morning, Sandra," he said, walking toward her. She smiled back politely. "Good morning, Simon. Glad you remembered," he teased. "So, how's the accounting department treating you?" "Busy," she replied, adjusting her ID card. "But I'm getting used to it." "That's good," he said. "Listen, my dad talks about you a lot. I think you've made quite an impression on him." Sandra blushed slightly. "He's a good man. He helped me when I needed it the most." Simon's eyes softened. "That's Dad for you, always believing in people, but he doesn't do that for just anyone. You must be special." His tone was sincere, but Sandra still felt that strange uneasiness from the night before. She smiled faintly. "I just try to do my best." "Well," Simon said, "how about lunch today?" "My treat. There's a new garden restaurant not far from here. I think you'll like it." Sandra hesitated. "I don't know, Please," he interrupted gently. "Just lunch, no pressure." She finally nodded. "All right." The restaurant was like something out of a magazine, bright flowers, soft music, glass walls that reflected the sky. Simon pulled out a chair for her, like a gentleman. As they ate, he told her stories about his time in Europe, how he studied finance and business management, how he missed Nigerian jollof, how he admired his father but sometimes wished to live a normal life. Sandra listened, surprised at how humble he sounded for a billionaire's son. He asked about her too, her childhood, her dreams, her father. She spoke slowly, her voice trembling at some points, but Simon didn't interrupt. He listened like someone who actually cared. By the time dessert came, she was laughing freely. The message from last night began to feel like a forgotten dream. But when she returned home that evening, another message was waiting. "He's not who you think he is." Sandra's chest tightened. "Same unknown number." She quickly typed back, "Who is this?" No reply. Her hands shook as she called the number, but it rang and then went dead. A part of her wanted to tell Jonathan, but she stopped herself. What if it was nothing? What if she looked foolish? Still, something about it felt too deliberate to ignore. Days passed. Sandra and Simon grew closer. They often stayed late in the office, working on reports together. Sometimes they talked about life instead of numbers. He would make her laugh by mimicking the office janitor or complain about how Lagos traffic was worse than anything he'd seen in Europe. He made her feel seen, something she hadn't felt in a long time. One evening, as they stood by the window overlooking the city lights, Simon said quietly, "Sandra, you're different. I don't know what it is, but when I talk to you, everything feels lighter." She smiled. "Maybe it's because I've been through darkness. I know how to appreciate the light." He looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe that's what I need." Before she could reply, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen and froze. This time, the message said, "Check his briefcase." Sandra's fingers went cold. She looked up at Simon, who was still smiling, unaware. The black leather briefcase rested near his desk. Her mind raced. Who could be sending these messages? Why her? "Are you okay?" Simon asked. "Yes, I just remembered something," she said quickly, pocketing her phone. He nodded, not suspecting anything. "You look pale. Maybe you need to rest. I'll drop you home." She forced a smile. "No, it's fine. I'll be okay." But she wasn't okay. Not at all. That night, she couldn't sleep again. She turned the situation over in her mind, over and over. Should she check his briefcase? That would mean breaking his trust. But what if there was something in there she needed to know? Her thoughts were interrupted by a call around midnight. Unknown number again. She picked up, her voice shaking. "Hello?" Silence. Then a deep voice said, "Sandra, be careful. You don't know the family you're working for." "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You helped the right man," the voice continued. "But his son, he hides things, dangerous things." "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. The line clicked. The call ended. Sandra stared at her phone, her pulse racing. Was it true? Could Simon be hiding something? She sat up in bed, the darkness pressing around her. She couldn't let fear control her, but curiosity burned in her chest. "Tomorrow," she whispered to herself, "tomorrow I'll find out the truth." The next day, she arrived at the office early. The halls were quiet. The cleaners were still mopping the floor. She walked straight to Simon's office. His briefcase sat on the desk, just as she remembered. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. She looked around. No one was there. Slowly, she opened it. Inside were papers, files, and one brown envelope with her name written on it in neat handwriting. Sandra froze. Her name? She opened the envelope with shaking fingers, and what she saw inside made her knees go weak. It was a stack of photographs. Photographs of her, walking home from work, shopping in the market, sitting by her window reading a book, all taken secretly. Her breath caught in her throat. She nearly dropped the photos. What was this? Why would Simon have these? Before she could move, the office door opened behind her. "Looking for something, Sandra?" She turned slowly. Simon stood there, his face calm, but his eyes were cold. Sandra froze. Her fingers still clutched the edge of the desk. The photographs in her other hand trembled so violently she almost dropped them. Simon stepped into the office and quietly closed the door behind him. The sound of the lock clicking felt louder than thunder. For the first time since she met him, his smile was gone. His face was unreadable, somewhere between calm and control. "So," he said softly, walking toward her. "You opened my briefcase." Sandra's lips parted, but no words came out. "Simon, I didn't mean to." He raised a hand to stop her. "You saw your pictures, didn't you?" Her throat went dry. "Yes. Why do you have them? Were you following me?" He sighed and ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "Sandra, please, just sit down." "I'm not sitting," she said, stepping back. "Tell me the truth." He looked at her with something like pain in his eyes. "It's not what you think. Just let me explain." "Then explain." He took a deep breath. "Those photos weren't taken by me. My father had you followed." Sandra blinked. "What?" "Yes," Simon said. "Before he called you that day, before he offered you the job, he asked the security team to keep an eye on you, to make sure you were really who you said you were." Sandra shook her head. "That doesn't make sense. Why would he do that?" "Because my father doesn't trust easily," Simon said, his voice low. "He's a kind man, but he's been betrayed many times by business partners, even by family. When you helped him that day, he wanted to be sure you weren't pretending." Sandra's heart pounded so hard she could hear it. "You're lying. Mr. Jonathan would never—" "I wish I was lying," Simon interrupted softly. "But I've known him all my life. He tests everyone." Sandra looked down at the photographs again. The shock and confusion twisted into something sharper hurt. "So all this time, he didn't help me because of kindness?" she asked. "He helped me because I was part of his experiment." Simon's voice softened. "It started like that, but it's not like that anymore. I know my father. He saw something in you that reminded him of himself, of the person he used to be. He truly admires you now, Sandra." She felt dizzy. The walls seemed to close in. "I don't even know what's real anymore," she whispered. Simon took a cautious step closer. "Sandra, listen to me. My father may have started with a test, but everything after that, your job, your house, the respect you've earned, that's because of you. You proved yourself." Sandra's eyes filled with tears. "And what about you, Simon? Were you sent to watch me too?" He looked away, jaw tightening. "Answer me," she said. He turned back to her slowly. "At first, yes." The world seemed to stop. "What?" she whispered. "My father wanted me to observe you. He said you reminded him of my late mother, honest, gentle, but too trusting. He wanted to see if you were the kind of person the company could rely on." Sandra took a step back, pain flashing across her face. "So every lunch, every laugh, every word you were spying on me?" "No," Simon said quickly. "Not after the first week. Sandra, I swear, after that, everything changed. I liked you. I still do. I didn't plan it. It just happened." Her tears fell freely now. "Do you have any idea how humiliated I feel right now?" He moved closer, desperate. "Sandra, please. Don't touch me," she shouted. The sound echoed through the office. A few employees outside turned their heads, but the frosted glass hid everything. Sandra wiped her tears angrily. "You don't get it, Simon. All my life I've had to fight to be taken seriously. I worked hard, I lost everything. And when someone finally showed me kindness, I thought it was real. But now I see it was all a game to your family." Simon's face twisted with guilt. "It wasn't a game to me, Sandra. It started wrong, but I swear, my feelings are real." "Then why didn't you tell me?" she asked, voice breaking. "You had so many chances." He looked down, defeated. "Because I was scared. Scared you'd hate me. And now you do." Sandra turned toward the door, gripping her bag tightly. "You're right, I do." Before Simon could say another word, she walked out. That evening, she went straight to her house, locked the door, and broke down completely. She cried until she had no tears left. The betrayal cut deep, not just from Simon, but from Jonathan too. The man she saw as a father figure had built her new life on a lie. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look, but curiosity won. It was another text from the same unknown number. Now you see the truth. But there's more. Check tomorrow's newspaper headline. Sandra frowned. What did that mean? She barely slept that night, haunted by everything: Simon's face, his confession, the photographs. Morning came like a punishment. She walked into the office, eyes swollen but posture straight. She needed to face them, to face him. The receptionist looked at her strangely when she entered. Some employees whispered. One of them held a newspaper. Sandra's stomach sunk. She walked over and grabbed a copy from the table. The headline hit her like a slap. Billionaire Jonathan Andrew under EFCC investigation for fraud and money laundering. Her hands trembled as she read. The article described questionable transactions in the company's accounts, money traced through overseas firms, documents signed by key finance officers, and under the bold letters there was a list of names under suspected signatories. Her eyes widened when she saw her own. Sandra Okoro, account officer, Jonathan Group. She couldn't breathe. The office suddenly felt smaller. People were staring. A few pointed at her. Her phone began to ring again, unknown number. With shaking fingers, she answered. Hello? The same deep voice from before spoke. I warned you, Sandra. You trusted the wrong people. Now they're setting you up. Her knees weakened. Who are you? She whispered. Someone who used to work for them, the voice said. They needed a scapegoat. And you, the kind girl who carried a man on her back, were the perfect target. Sandra's vision blurred. No, this can't be true. They've already handed your name to the investigators, the voice continued. You need to run. Sandra's phone nearly fell from her hand. She looked up and saw two men in dark suits entering the building. They showed ID cards to the receptionist. Good morning, one of them said loudly. We're from the EFCC. We need to see Miss Sandra Okoro immediately. Every head in the office turned. Sandra's world collapsed. She stood frozen, her pulse hammering in her ears. Simon came running from his office, confusion on his face. What's going on? But before she could answer, one of the agents held up a file. Miss Sandra Okoro, you're under investigation for financial misappropriation and document forgery. Simon's eyes widened. Wait, what? This must be a mistake. The agent ignored him. Please, come with us. Sandra's voice cracked. No, please, I didn't do anything. I swear I didn't. One of the men took her gently by the arm. You can explain at the office, ma'am. As they led her out, the whispers grew louder. Some co-workers looked shocked. Others just stared, curious. Simon followed behind, shouting, Wait, I'll call my father, this isn't right. But Sandra's mind had already gone numb. She walked through the wide hallway that had once made her proud, her ID card still hanging from her neck. The same ID she had worn when she was promoted. The same one that now felt like a chain around her neck. Outside, the sun was blinding. The cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. And in the middle of the noise, Sandra whispered to herself, How did kindness lead me here? The sirens outside the EFCC building screamed like they were mocking her. Sandra sat in the small grey interrogation room, her wrists free, but her soul felt chained. The fluorescent bulb buzzed faintly above her. Across from her sat a man in a suit who looked bored, tapping his pen on the table. So, he said finally, looking at the file in front of him, Miss Sandra Okoro, account officer at Jonathan Group. You claim you don't know anything about the missing funds. Sandra's voice cracked. I swear, sir, I only handled daily transactions. I've never seen those documents before. He leaned back in his chair. Then why are your signatures on them? Her heart dropped. My what? He turned the file toward her. Her breath caught. Her own signature, copied perfectly, sat on documents transferring millions of naira to fake foreign accounts. She shook her head. No, that's not mine. Someone forged it. The agent sighed. You understand, Miss Sandra, everyone says that. Tears welled in her eyes. Please, sir, someone is setting me up. The man studied her face for a long moment, then closed the file. We'll find out soon enough. He stood and walked out, leaving her alone in the cold silence. Sandra put her head in her hands. For the first time in her life, she wished she hadn't stopped that day to help anyone. Her phone, which had been taken earlier, lay on the table. The door opened, and one of the female officers placed it in front of her. You can make one call, the woman said kindly. Sandra hesitated. Who could she even call? Then she whispered, "Simon." 30 minutes later, the door opened again. Simon rushed in, his shirt rumpled, his eyes red as if he hadn't slept. "Sandra." She stood up. "Simon, I didn't do any of this. You have to believe me." "I know," he said, voice trembling. "I know you didn't." "Then tell them," she cried. "Tell them I'm innocent." He shook his head. "They won't listen to me, but my father can fix this. I've been calling him, he's not answering." Sandra's face fell. Why would he not answer? Simon hesitated, then spoke carefully. "He left the country last night." Sandra felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. "What?" "I didn't know until this morning," Simon said. "He said he had an urgent meeting in London. But the timing..." His voice trailed off. Sandra grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. "Simon, please tell me you're not saying your father." Simon looked at her, pain and disbelief mixing in his eyes. "I don't know anymore, Sandra. I don't know what to believe." 2 hours later, the EFCC released Sandra temporarily on one condition. She must remain in Lagos until the investigation ended. Simon took her home, neither of them saying a word in the car. The once comforting ride through Victoria Island now felt heavy, like the air itself had turned against her. When they reached her gate, Simon finally spoke. "Sandra, I'll find out the truth, I promise." She nodded weakly. "You don't owe me anything, Simon. I just want my life back." He turned to her, eyes wet. "I owe you everything. You changed me." She opened the door and stepped out. "Then, prove it." Days turned into a blur of silence, shame, and fear. News spread fast. Some neighbors avoided her, some whispered that she was a fraud. Then, one afternoon, her phone buzzed. It was Simon. "Come to my father's mansion," he said urgently. "Now." Sandra hesitated. "Why?" "He's back, and you need to hear what he has to say." Her heart pounded as she took a cab to the estate. When the gate opened, everything looked different. Guards tense, cars parked at odd angles, house lights dimmed. Simon met her at the door. "He's in the study," he said quietly. Sandra walked in. Jonathan sat behind his grand mahogany desk, dressed in a plain shirt, looking older than before. Papers lay scattered in front of him. He looked up as she entered. "Sandra," he said, his voice rough, "I'm sorry you had to go through this." She crossed her arms. "Are you?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, but you must understand. Someone framed both of us." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He leaned back, eyes tired. "There's a man I trusted, a partner named Mr. Lawson. He managed several of our international accounts. Turns out he was moving funds under my name. He used your department's authorization chain to make it look like you were involved. When the EFCC started tracing the money, he disappeared." Sandra blinked. "So, you weren't behind it?" He shook his head. "No, but I'm responsible for not protecting you. I saw the pain in your face the first day you helped me. I promised myself I'd change your life, but instead I dragged you into chaos." Her eyes filled with tears. "I lost everything again, sir. My name, my peace, everything." Jonathan stood up slowly and walked toward her. "And I'll make it right." He picked up a brown envelope from the table and handed it to her. Inside were documents, official letters, clearing her of all allegations, signed and stamped by EFCC authorities. Sandra gasped. "What, how?" "I sent my legal team to Abuja," he said softly. "They presented the new evidence. The EFCC confirmed the documents had been forged. You're free." Her tears fell freely. "Sir, I don't even know what to say." He smiled weakly. "Say nothing. Just promise me one thing, don't stop being kind. The world doesn't need more powerful people, it needs more kind people like you." Sandra nodded through her tears. "I promise." Weeks later, life slowly returned to normal. Jonathan publicly apologized to her in a company meeting, clearing her name before the entire staff. When he finished speaking, the hall erupted in applause. But Sandra didn't smile, she cried, quietly, overwhelmed. Simon stood by her side, his hand brushing hers. She didn't pull away this time. Afterward, outside the company building, he turned to her. "I've been thinking," he said. "Maybe kindness doesn't just find good people, it brings them together." Sandra smiled faintly. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" He knelt right there on the marble steps, holding a small velvet box. Sandra Okoro, you walked into our lives and changed everything. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll spend my life earning it. Will you marry me? The crowd of employees behind them gasped and cheered. Sandra covered her mouth, tears spilling again, but this time they were tears of joy. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will. Simon stood and hugged her tightly as cameras clicked. Behind them, Jonathan watched from the doorway, his face soft with pride and emotion. Later, at the wedding, he walked Sandra down the aisle himself. The guests smiled as he said quietly in her ear, "You carried me on your back when I had nothing, Sandra. Today I carry you into your new life. Kindness made this happen." Sandra smiled through tears, her white gown shimmering under the sunlight. And as the choir began to sing, she looked up at the sky and whispered, "Daddy, I kept my promise. Kindness always comes home." If you like this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.